Good morning to all of you, and welcome to the 17th annual, I cannot believe I'm saying 17th, 17th year in a row of the Central and Southwest Asian Studies Conference. We started already the conference this morning with a wonderful radio show on KGVO, which apparently has over 20,000 listeners, and we had Will Todman on the show. And I need to tell you that while we will start with this wonderful presentation on India, this will be a day packed with panels, discussions, presentations, as well as tomorrow. And today we will go from this presentation on India to a wonderful presentation by a panel of students, and that promises to be a wonderful sort of gathering of some of our best students. Then we will proceed with a wonderful conversation about Mr. Putin, Russia, and the relationship between Russia and the Middle East and North Africa. And that will be conducted by several of our outstanding colleagues. Of course, among them, Professor Robert Greene, the foremost expert on everything relating to Russia. And then tonight, I want to remind you, and the schedule is on that table, so please pick up a copy of Will Todman's presentation, keynote presentation on the Arab world. Will just returned from the Persian Gulf, where he visited several countries of the region. And he will talk, and the topic, the ties that bind, a family, tribe, nation, and the rise of individualism in the Arab world, which, based on what he performed today, promises to be an outstanding presentation. All these, of course, talks are open and free. Then tomorrow we will have a presentation by foremost expert on China, Dexter Roberts, who is an award-winning journalist and speaker, also former China bureau chief at Bloomberg Businessweek. The topic, the title itself tells you everything, from factory of the world to superpower, China's troubled transition. Then we have a wonderful presentation by our colleague Bruce Barrett, the resurgence of anti-Semitism in the United States. Then we will have a fabulous presentation by Dr. Ardi Kia on Central Asia at 1 o'clock tomorrow. He is the co-director of the Central and Southwest Asian Studies Center. And then we will cap it all with a wonderful panel of scholars from China who have come to us. They just arrived from Shanghai International Studies University, and they will speak about China's role in Central Asia and the Middle East, as well as North Africa. And as it was mentioned today in the radio show, folks travel all over the world, spending thousands of dollars going to conferences. We have brought this conference for free to Missoula, Montana, and many people would like to join us for these talks, and I really appreciate your presence. But with no further ado, we have a first-class scholar here, Ekta Gupta, and it is truly a pleasure and a privilege to have you with us, Ekta, and speaking about one of the most important countries in the world today. We don't cover it as much, we were just talking about it. India is not only, people always talk about the rising power. No, it is a powerhouse, and it is no longer rising. It is there next to China, and next to United States, Russia, and perhaps in South America, Brazil, as one of the foremost economic powers in the world. And today, Ekta will speak about India, but especially with a focus on the role of women in India, which is a very important topic. So for those of you who might not know Ekta, Ms. Ekta Gupta is a PhD candidate at the Department of English and Modern European Languages This is at University of Lucknow, right, in India. She has done her master's in English literature with what is called first division, right? And you can explain what that is to our audience. She has done also her primary research area on South Asian women writers and their works, which is a fascinating topic on its own. Ms. Gupta has qualified a national eligibility test for assistant lecturership in India twice. She's interested in feminist studies, post-colonial studies, and South Asian studies. She has taught at the Scholarness School for a year at primary level, and her research paper on Shashi Deshpande's That Long Silence, right, that very famous work, was published in an international refereed journal for reviews and research. Her book review of Vijay Prakash Singh's A Day in the Life of Ghulam Sarwar and other stories published in the Criterion, an international journal in English. This university is truly privileged to have Ekta Gupta as a Fulbright scholar at the University of Montana. She's teaching Hindi at this university, and we hope and pray that the teaching of Hindi continues at this university, and we will have the pleasure of having her for many more semesters to come. So with no further ado, I have the privilege of introducing you Ekta Gupta. And once Ekta is done, there is a microphone. So questions, you can go to the microphone and ask your question.
Thank you so much for this kind introduction, sir. Okay, so I'm going to talk about the partition of Indian subcontinent, women, and the disharmony and disfiguration of India. India is a country of various colors. It is known for its ethnic, religious, social, political, cultural diversity. People of all castes, creed, and religion live together in the country. Whoever comes here becomes an integral part of it. Its centuries-old culture is so fluid that it has assimilated everything that come in and in return influenced others as well. India witnessed many invasions, and all of them came and became one with the country and yet maintained their individuality. We celebrate many festivals together. Holi, which is the festival of colors. Eid, Bakrid, Navratri, Ramzan. This is festival of harvest, and mainly Punjabis, Sikh people, they celebrate it. And these are other festivals we celebrate together. If Holi smears colors of love on our faces, Eid strengthens our brotherhood. If Baisakhi celebrates sustenance of life, Diwali teaches us to stand up for what is right, and no matter how hard it is. All the people who came here, for whatsoever reason, added to the richness of the country. Let's begin with a brief background of British rule in India, because without this, it will be hard to understand the dynamics of partition and how they affected the country. Differences of opinions often lead to strong reasons of animosity. Sikh, Marathas, Mughal, Gorkha, Rajputs, and Muslims were ruling different parts of India when British company came to India, and when they came, it was not so hard for them to see that the differences in people, their lifestyle, cultures, beliefs, and they started noticing that the kings who were ruling different parts of the country, they were fighting and they were in constant clash with each other. And they came as guests and merchants, but the lavishness and richness of the country made them greedy. Somehow they took permission to stay in the country. I'm talking about the East India Company. So they took permission to do business in the country first, And later, they started interfering into the political and social life of the country. And then they succeeded in getting permission to keep an army for their own protection. And after that, because these clashes were going on, so they started giving this military help to other people. And and those who took their help, their military help, they became a puppet of them, because the kings who have taken their help, they need to serve them now in return. This development of becoming a host from a guest was so seamless that nobody could see what happened to them. And when they realized, it was actually too late when they realized it. Two major battles changed the history of India completely. First, this Battle of Plassey, which happened in 1757. It gave them huge money, and they won a land to rule over India at this time. So Lord Clive from the East India Company, he actually could win the battle because he bribed few people in India. So when these people, so the main king, the Nawab, his commander-in-chief, he was actually given bribe by Lord Clive. And when they went to fight, he actually didn't move to fight. And that's how they were able to win in just 11 hours. That was what happened. This battle established them as a power in India. And after that, this second battle which happened in 1764, which was fought between Britain's Hector Munro and a joint army of Shah Alam II, Mir Qasim and Suja-ud-Dawla. This battle actually established and extended their empire in whole north part of India. This whole north part of India. And at this time, they established this dual government, where this Nawab was the king for namesake only, and real power actually went into the hands of the company. One of the reasons of the downfall of the country was that there was immense lack of mutual support and understanding. Greed of power actually made people, passive. They didn't help each other. Rajputs, they didn't help Muslims. Muslims, they didn't care about Rajputs and Maratha kings. When Britain was expanding its route in India, no one actually said anything because they were ruling in different parts. So they were thinking that it's not their matter. It's not their matter. So and thus nobody showed any signs of far-sightedness, that if they are coming there, they can come to your house as well someday. And soon this personal matter became a threat to the national matters. East India Company, it ruled for 100 years, and it was all concerned with profits and only profits, and in every possible way. So they started plundering money from India, and they started exploiting people and sending all money to Britain. And this exploitation was unprecedented, and this dehumanizing process went on for a century. And after that, this revolt of 1857, this happened. This was a time of huge transition. Some people actually preferred to cling with the glorious past. For example, Muslims, they were so nostalgic about their glorious past. Their kings were ruling the country and all. But when this English company came, they just lost everything. So that was their pain, and that's why they started hating this British company. And some people, like Hindus and other people, who started thinking about going with the flow. So they started, getting English education, which was introduced there, and through that they started, getting jobs in the government. So William Bentinck's English Education Act helped them creating a group of honest, government-supportive, middle-class and cheap Indian labourers. Macaulay's Minute of 1835 exposed the ill feelings behind the promotion of English language and education in India. This is what was going on to create an unimaginable gulf between Hindus and Muslims. So Muslims, due to their personal reasons of disliking of English rule, they refused to get English education. Most of them denied. Some of them did, but most of them actually denied to get English education. In the meantime, Hindus were becoming an important and powerful class because they started getting education, they started working in government jobs, and they were becoming, well off in the society in terms of education also. And they had government jobs, while Muslim brothers, they could not forget their glorious past, so they just denied to work in the government and all. So companies, and some of them actually worked in companies, but not on very high positions. Companies' heinous policies against people and kings spread unrest in them, and British government's disregard of people's sentiments, their religious affiliations, and extreme discrimination between Indian and British soldiers gave rise to the revolt of 1857, this one. So company's unending plundering was at its peak at this time, and all parts of the country started burning with the desire of freedom. All of them wanted them to just go from there. So there was this revolt which started in different parts of the country: Kanpur, Jhansi, Delhi, Lucknow, Audh, Bihar, and Allahabad. All these places they started revolting. And Queen of Jhansi, here is Lakshmi Bai, that one. So Queen of Jhansi, Tatya Tope, Bihar, Prince of Bihar, Begum of Audh, and Nana Sahib, and Faizabad's king, Ahmadullah, all. So see, these were Hindus and Muslims together at this time. So they were all fighting against one enemy, common enemy. Queen of Jhansi, Lakshmi Bai, and all of them, and all of them declared last Mughal Emperor Bahadur Shah the king of Hindustan. Him. So he was actually at 82 at that point, but Mughals were ruling the country before Britain. So all of them jointly declared him to be the emperor of Hindustan if they are able to remove British company. But British government suppressed this revolt inhumanly. The government took all their power, money, honor, and everything on earth that is required to live respectfully. But nonetheless, this revolt actually harmed East India Company in its own way, because they lost their authority over the richest colony, which was India. And Queen Victoria actually took the dominion under her. This was the area. This was the area where this revolution started. But at this time, Britain was to come back with a different plan. Though they suppressed the revolution, but they sensed the power of unity among people. So the Hindu-Muslim unity, they saw it. So they knew, and so now for them it became necessary to break all that mutual love and respect which was there, and fill their heart with that communal hatred, internal resentment towards each other, if they want to rule in the country forever. So the reason of the revolts were many, but major reasons were: first, kings like Bahadur Shah and Nana Sahib were insulted. So these were major kings in India, and British company was insulting them by giving them pension. So they were ruling the country and they were given pension. So that was an insult for them in itself. And apart from that, they stopped giving that pension later on. And on pension, on top of that, they started extracting more loans, more taxes on them. So they they were not able to pay those taxes because their income was not that good. So one reason was that. The other reason was Dalhousie's policy of annexation. So what he started doing was he started overtaking the territories of remaining kings who were there on the basis of misgovernance. So they said that you are not able to rule, so that's why we are taking your territory under us. Moreover, he started dividing territories of Indian childless kings. So kings who did not have any child, they started taking over their kingdoms as well. On top of that, the discrimination policies were terrible. They used to pay British soldiers more than Indians. And one thing is that in their army, 80% population was Indian soldiers, and only 20% were British people, and they were paying them less. People got to know that the bullets they were using, they had some kind of animal grease, and they doubted that this grease was actually cow or pig's grease. So, and what they need to do, to open it, they have to take it in their mouth and then open it, which was unacceptable. I mean, it was a taboo for Muslims to take a pig's, grease into mouth, and Hindu revered cows, so they could not take that into their mouths as well. So that created lot of unrest in people. Kings were fighting for, and then what happened that we failed because we were not united. So everyone was fighting for different reasons. Though they wanted to make Bahadur Shah the king of India, but they had their own reasons to fight, and that's why they could not collaborate. Other reason was that there was lack of communication. So these revolts, when they started, they started at different point of time and at different place. So British people, the company could get time to suppress them. They could suppress them easily, and it was easy for them. So if they started it, together, they would have won the battle, but they didn't do that. This is a picture of the kind of battle. So if you notice, most of these British soldiers are actually Indians, and people who are fighting, they are also Indians. So because people who joined British Army, Indian people, they became loyal to them. So this was, only loss of India. Indian people fighting with Indians in the revolt. Since the revolution, it started in collaboration of Hindus, Muslims and Maratha rulers, so British government decided to punish them in every possible way. But just punishment was not enough, because they knew that if they punish, they will come back. So what they did, they thought that if people remained close to each other, revolts like that would occur again and again, and they will lose the country. So they directed their anger towards Muslims, Rajputs and Marathas who started the revolution, but actually in different proportions. So the anger was there, but in different proportions. And the magnitude of that anger towards Muslim rulers and Muslim population was gigantic and harsher than others. So they started, because Mughal king Bahadur Shah was to become the king, so they had more hate towards Muslim than Hindus. So, and that's how they started creating gulf. So like if two people are fighting together, two people started the fight together, and if punishment goes only to ones, I mean harsher to ones and softer to other, it will create a gulf, and that's what happened. So this they turned the king Bahadur Shah. He was the Mughal emperor, and they turned him into a beggar in his own country. His kids were killed, his wives and all his population, his subjects, they were tortured brutally. They usurped all his property and tortured all his people. Humiliation of the king and its population was at its peak at that time, and they took everything from him. And they burdened the Muslim population with huge taxes to revenge. So they started taking more taxes from Muslim population than Hindus. People actually had sympathy toward their defeated king. So it was making them, very sad about, what happened to their king. And the discriminating and shameful treatment of Hindus and Muslim population saw the seeds of discontent among people again. So they didn't know what was going on and why it is happening. Good part of the revolution was that very good part was that company lost its control over India. That was the only good thing about it. And British company, the Queen, when she came into the Dominion, she changed her ways in some ways. So now, when they started annexing the properties of the people, now they stopped that. They were not, taking over properties. So they just kind of did a kind of compromise that, you rule there, and we will also contribute. It was like that. This is a picture of that war. Okay, and worth noticing thing is that at this time there was no trace of communal hatred. So communal hatred, like hating each other for their beliefs and all, it was not there at this time. And even if it was there, it was not very strong. So this hateful mentality was created and nurtured by British government for their own benefits later on, after this thing. A huge population was not aware of this gulf until it actually devoured us all, and their biased policies of Hindus and Muslims started stretching gulf between the Hindus and Muslims. This Indian National Congress, in 1885, A.O. Hume, he created this National Congress with the help of educated Indians, and these educated Indians mostly were Hindus. And they worked. This organization actually worked in favor of public interest, and since this Congress was predominantly a Hindu organization, Muslims could not trust it. And Aga Khan formed the Muslim League for Muslim interests in 1906. Their continuous separatist ideologies actually eventually resulted in form of partition of India in the leadership of Muhammad Ali Jinnah. And then happened this incident, 13th April 1919, Jallianwala Bagh, Amritsar, Punjab. People gathered to have a peaceful gathering on the day of Baisakhi, their festival, 13th of April. And on this day, when they saw, so public meetings were banned at this time, so British government didn't want anyone to have public gatherings. So Michael O'Dwyer, who was the general, he came and he ordered firing on unarmed people for no reason. Men, women and kids were butchered like animals indistinguishably, and people ran in chaos to save their lives and jumped into well, but all in vain. And this is the recent newspaper. On 13th of April, we actually completed 100 years of this massacre and this unfortunate day. And the headline was that how 1,650 bullets changed the course of India's freedom struggle. So this was the time when, when the entire freedom struggle was going to shift. This was the incident. This is the well, which is still there, and people just jumped in it just to save themselves. Okay, this video is actually, it is a reenactment in a recent movie, where, and we have a lot of movies that have shown what happened on this day. So after watching this, and I actually knew about it because I took history in my high schools, but when I started reading and writing about this paper, it was actually making me sick. And I was not able to concentrate after, seeing these kinds of injustices which were happening in the country.
But Grammarly can help. This sentence is grammatically correct, but it's wordy and hard to read. It undermines the writer's message, and the word choice is bland. Grammarly's cutting-edge technology helps you craft compelling, understandable writing that makes an impact on your reader.
Positions! Load! Fire! Taiwan! This is warning now.
The wounds of this shameless massacre made people cry with blood in their eyes. This incident proved to be a turning point in the freedom struggle of India. These are the two concepts through which we fought the struggle of our independence. Concept of non-violence, and this is one shloka, one complete shloka in Manusmriti. Okay, so one part says that non-violence is the highest form of religious conduct, and the other says that violence is right in the service of dharma. So the idea was that you can't accept injustice in the name of non-violence. It's not actually an absolute concept, it's a relative concept, and it depends on situation. So this was the point of departure from Mahatma Gandhi's ideology. So Mahatma Gandhi and his followers were following this part, and then people, after this incident, people became so angry, and there was the rise of radicals in India who wanted to get rid of British rule from India as soon as possible. So people who lived in the living hell of violence saw their loved ones being killed ruthlessly for no reason and treated not more than an animal, could not believe in the idea of non-violence. So in the wake of violence, non-violence actually lost its meaning for them. And that is what gave rise to Indian revolutionaries, Indian radicals. Two groups of people came out. One group was called moderates and the other was radicals. So if we look closely, these two sides were actually the two sides of the same coin. So both were following the teachings of Bhagavad Gita. One resolved to follow non-violence, and the other considered it was noble to sacrifice one's life to fight injustice. Moderates believed in petitions, appeals, resolutions, meetings, peaceful demonstrations, and they thought that this will help them get freedom. While radicals, they believed answering Britain in its own language, and it was the language in which they have been communicating with us since they came. And one thing I was just thinking that because their idea was to civilize the world and civilized everyone, and I don't understand how they can civilize through this Jallianwala Bagh incident. So I just don't understand their civilization, and they came to civilize one of the oldest civilizations in the world. Methods used by moderates were losing their effectiveness. That's what radicals were thinking. Before Britain's violent policies, and British government was suppressing and killing people brutally every day. Every day there were incidents recorded where, people were killed for one reason or the other due to discrimination and all these things. Women were being raped by British soldiers and officials, and no action was taken against them. People were being jailed and tortured in jail custody, and sometimes they died there because of their inhumane torture for no reason. And silent protests were not helping much. That's what radicals thought. And this disturbed radicals a lot to be a prisoner in their own country, and they could not tolerate this humiliation and took up weapons to fight. Other reason behind the gap between moderates and radicals was that the policies of moderates were kind of slow, and radicals wanted to free the country as soon as possible. So they didn't want to wait longer and they couldn't see they couldn't see that their country is getting destroyed, and we are just following those slow processes. So some people, they call them extremists. I don't know why, but they are actually radicals. They are not extremists. So Lala Lajpat Rai, first one, Bal Gangadhar Tilak, Bipin Chandra Pal, Aurobindo Ghosh. They were radicals. Their ideas were very, very radical in terms of fights and struggles. And the other part, Dadabhai Naoroji, S.N. Banerjee, Badruddin Tayyabji and Feroz Shah. All of them believed in, they were the early generation, so they believed that, it's good to talk and resolve matters just by talking. And then this incident happened in 1928. Lala Lajpat Rai, a moderate, he was a member of Hindu Mahasabha, and he and his people, he actually came forward to protest Sion Commission, which came in India in 1928. And this commission was nothing but a kind of trap, again to trap India and its independence. So that's why they were just opposing it. It was a constitutional reform bill actually, and it was brought by 7 British Parliament members without any Indian representative in it. So that was made them, think that it's biased and it's not for India's interest. During the protest, so they were there to protest, and during that protestation in Lahore, police officers named Scott and Sanders, these 2 police officers, they started beating people with bamboo sticks, and including Lala Lajpat Rai, and which actually eventually took his life because he was beaten very severely there. And this incident, that small boy which you saw in video, he was Bhagat Singh, one of the greatest leaders of Indian independence struggle. So he was just 20 at that time when he saw that, and he actually respected him a lot. So when he saw that how he was killed, he resolved to take revenge from these police officers. So he planned to kill Scott and Sanders, and he could kill Sanders. And later on, what he did, he deliberately, this is the boy. Later on, he deliberately got himself arrested by throwing bomb in the assembly, British Assembly. And he actually threw a bomb, but it was just smoke. It didn't do any harm. And he did it just to make his voice heard by people, because they were organizing this small organization of revolutionaries on the local plane. So he wanted everyone to know about it. So that's why he did that. Nobody was injured, so he knew that there can be no case against him, no serious charges against him. But what happened that then he was arrested, and some of his group members were also arrested, and they were tortured brutally in the police custody. And because of that torture, one of the group members, he betrayed him, and he told the officers that Bhagat Singh was the one who killed that British officer Sanders, and now he was to be charged with Sanders' murder, which was a serious case. And they sentenced him to be hanged on 24th of March. Interesting fact is that most people believed that Gandhiji was capable of, saving Bhagat Singh. Because exactly, so he was killed on 23rd of March 1931, and Gandhiji actually signed Gandhi-Irving Pact, which was signed on 5th March 1931, which actually pardoned all the political prisoners. And Bhagat Singh was also a political prisoner, but nobody, fought a case for him. So Bhagat Singh was hanged on 23rd of March 1919, along with his 2 friends, Rajguru and Sukhdev. A day prior to his assigned date of death, because British Raj was actually extremely scared of his growing popularity and increasing sympathy of people towards him. So actually the sentence was that he will be hanged on 24th, but they did it one day prior, and they did not let his parents meet him for the last time. And then they tried to disposed that his body secretly, but people actually went there and they took over. Otherwise, we would have not gotten any trace of Bhagat Singh. This is his death certificate issued by them. And this was the headlines of the newspaper. Bhagat Singh, Rajguru and Sukhdev executed. No last interview with relations. No last interview. He is another fierce revolutionary patriot. His name is Chandrasekhar Azad. He rigorously worked towards India's independence. And British actually called him a terrorist because he was working for India's independence. So he was completely against them. And for India, he is a hero freedom fighter. He hated to be slave of any kind. So he was very moved by that Jallianwala Bagh massacre, and he started supporting Gandhiji's non-cooperation movement, which was going on at that time, and in 1920. So, but when he was arrested by the police and presented to, so at that time he was arrested and then he was presented in front of the magistrate. And when magistrate started asking these questions, he answered it in this way. And that's why, you know, he just made the magistrate very angry by his answers, and he punished him with 15 lashings. 15 lashings. And after that he vowed not to be captured alive by the British for obvious reasons. Bhagat Singh was actually working under him and helped him in Kakori robbery. Kakori robbery, so English government, they were actually, you know, taking a lot of money in the form of tax, and they were transferring this money to Britain. And that's when he planned to rob that money. And later on, somebody actually betrayed him, and he was actually to meet somebody in Alfred Park in Allahabad on 27th of February, but somebody leaked his information, so he was encountered, but he actually killed himself because he never wanted to be caught by them. He is another brave son of our nation, who believed that just talking doesn't help when your enemy always negotiates with violence and treachery. He had this major point of departure from Congress's point of view, so he was a member of Congress, and which actually separated him. This point of view actually separated him from Congress. I have a video to show you. He was actually expelled from Presidency College in 1918 during an examination. A British teacher, he made a mistake of insulting India and religion in front of him, and then he taught British government and that teacher, of course, that he was a different face of India.
What is that? Are you cheating?
No, sir. It's a Gayatri Mantra likha hua hai.
Oh, yes. We try to rid you of your superstitions. And we fail every single time.
Sir, please don't do that.
You are a beastly people with a beastly religion. And I shall have none of this pagan nonsense in my classroom. If any of you is carrying a totem which you mistakenly believe will call upon some deity in the sky to swoop down and assist you in passing my examination, I assure you it will not. Take said totem and place it in this box. Now! Hurry up! Please understand, there is no real power attached to any of these objects, except that which you yourself give it. Sir.
He is both.
Yes.
I find your idea quite liberating.
Yes.
So if I don't attach any power to your position as professor or teacher, then I'm free to do something which I wanted to do since the day I joined your class?
What is that?
So this is his real picture. He was a Congress member and then he left Congress because of his different views and his radical views. Though he was expelled from the college, but British government could never sleep properly until he was alive. And he tried to follow Mahatma Gandhi's footprints, but it seemed to him that it didn't affect the government much, which made him have a separate organization. He organized a Indian National Army to fight against Britain. And to get rid of Britain, he contacted Japanese, German and Russian forces too. He's meeting with Hitler and these forces. He was trying to seek their help to make India free because he thought that they are enemies of Britain, so he thought them to be friends. In the meantime, World War II began and Britain threw India into it with the collaboration of Muslim leagues. So no Congress leader allowed for Indian people to participate in that World War, but they actually jailed, imprisoned all of them at that time, and Muslim League was in power, which was created in 1906. So they started supporting them, and that's how they won favor of Britain. And they supported government to win their favor, and Congress and Mahatma Gandhi denied their support. Gandhi urged the country and Muslim League not to participate in the battle, but Muslim League did not listen. And later this collaboration actually helped them to make Pakistan, because Britain favored them this time. Bose was trying to start a war against Britain, but Japanese forces changed the plan due to World War II. And in 1942, Mahatma Gandhi started Quit India movement. And it was one of the largest movements in Indian history. And he called people to do or die. Then after 3 years, in 1945, news came out that Subhash Chandra Bose died in a plane crash on 18th of August 1945. And this is still a mystery how he actually died. His popularity among people of India was so strong that had he lived longer, he would have become the first Prime Minister of India instead of Pandit Jawaharlal Nehru. It was really unfortunate that though all these leaders who were fighting for the freedom of India, they were fighting for the same reason. But their ideological differences actually didn't let them come together. And at this time, the seeds of separatism and independence struggle were flourishing side by side. And this habit of not supporting each other made the road to independence longer than it should have been. And had they helped each other, Britain would have never gotten time to sow the seeds of communal hatred in the country. Keeping their benefit in mind, before declaring Indian subcontinent free, Britain tried to play its last move to destroy the country. The magnitude of this treachery was such that there would have been no India in the world map, but just 565 small countries in its place, had it not been the Iron Man of India, Sardar Vallabhbhai Patel. So before leaving, British government asked all the states of India to make themselves free of India and make their own independent government. But for their disappointment, we had this lawyer. He was a lawyer actually, and a great diplomat. He knew how to work with these kinds of things. So he destroyed their dream of demolishing India in just 15 days. And very peacefully, he didn't fight with anyone, he just convinced everyone to be a part of India. And thus he avoided those 565 partitions of the country. And he died at the age of 75. This was Britain in 1947, British India. So what exactly went wrong? That he could not avoid this one partition. So he avoided those 565 partitions, but not this one, which was the partition between India and Pakistan. Jinnah actually gained immense popularity among Muslim community, and since they actually helped Britain in World War II, so they gained British favor as well. So, and British wanted us to be divided always, because they always want to gain favor. And you know, when people are united, it's really hard to get any benefit from them. But when they are divided, you can do whatever you want. So Jinnah, his assurance to make a complete Muslim republic country gave a way of hope to all Muslims who thought that they will be marginalized in India. So remember I told you, when people started, taking education, English education and all, most of the English educated people were Hindus. And because of that, and Muslims, of course, some of them were educated, but a huge population was not. And that's why they thought that when India would succeed, when Congress will make the government, which is predominantly Hindu, then they will be marginalized there. And the increasing financial and intellectual growth of Hindus and stagnant position of Muslims changed the whole idea of freedom. Now the fear was, if India gets freedom, Muslims would be secondary citizens, being a minority. This was just a fear which was nurtured by British community and Muhammad Ali Jinnah's separatist ideologies. Muhammad Ali Jinnah proposed two-nation ideology based on religion. He threatened and forced Mahatma Gandhi to accept this, otherwise he will ask the nation's Muslims to take the matter into their own hands directly, and will get his due by force and violence. And Jinnah started giving hateful and separatist speeches, and not just him, other Muslim leaders too. And Muslim League vehemently supported partition while Congress opposed it. And since Congress was not ready for the partition, riots broke out, and almost 3,000 people were killed. And of course, you remember when this 9/11 happened, I think 3,000 people died. And these 3,000 people actually died only before partition, just in riots before partition. Mahatma Gandhi, Vallabhbhai Patel, Jawaharlal Nehru all tried to convince him, but it was of no use. British government was aware of this change and started taking advantage of it by separating them further and further. A famous novelist, Bapsi Sidhwa, Pakistani novelist, she said that it is no longer just a struggle for home rule. It is a struggle of power. Who is going to rule once we get Swaraj, which is self-rule? That's how riots started breaking out in the country. They started burning, killing, everything. People died on the road. The Congress and Muslim League fought together for India's independence, of course, but their togetherness was forgotten because the colonial policy of divide and rule destroyed the peace of the country. Two-nation theory was based on religion despite of many other commonalities among people. So this two-nation theory ignored all other complexities of cultural, geographical, and political place. Partition killed and displaced millions of people, and the face of beautiful country was smeared with blood. Fear of death engulfed everyone, and hatred won the game. Get it or destroy it became the idea of the time. So either take it or just destroy it completely. The country started burning with this communal hatred, and the sensitivity in the air was such that if something happens in a Muslim house, Hindus were doubted, and if something happened in Muslim house, in Hindu's house, Muslims were doubted. But Jinnah was not the only one to blame. It was Congress too who implicitly agreed for the partition. And other thing was that in 1937 there were elections in India, and at that time people who won, they actually did not think about interests of Muslims. So that actually created the idea that, they are not going to work for Muslims later on. So this partition was not a simple division of the country. It was a mass killing program. Almost 3,000 people died in the, allow me just 1 minute. Hundreds of people were being killed every day, and Indian and Pakistanis government did nothing to save these people. So governments were created, and they were, celebrating their freedom and their new nation's, arrival and all. But they didn't do anything for these refugees and these people who were being killed every day on the borders. The aim of the fight was not to convert anyone, but to kill and destroy people. And people were burned alive, their houses were taken by local people. So it was like kind of, like people, what they did, because you are here and I'm a Hindu and you need to go in Pakistan. So I want your property. So I just threw you out and I took your property. It was like that. Plundering of money, property, it became kind of that. Religion was not there actually. And their houses were taken by local people, and this was actually the very last and successful attempt of Britain to destroy the peace of the country, and they were successful. This is how migration was happening from India to Pakistan, and Pakistan to India, and there. And that part. Cyril Ratcliffe, who was called to divide this huge Indian subcontinent, he actually had no idea about the sociological, cultural and geographical features of the country. It was easy for him to do that, but not easy for people to accept it. And almost 11.2 million people displaced. People were in West Pakistan, now, which is now Bangladesh. That one. $10 million people dislocated, and this is how migration took place. This one. And irony is that already defeated Britain put the condition to divide the country before leaving, along with Jinnah, before Congress. So Congress was not ready for it. So Britain, who was already defeated, they said that, you need to divide the country first before we leave. Almost 10 million people in total relocated, and over 1 million people died. Killings, demolishings of temples and mosques, robbery, everything was happening side by side, and all these incidents were filled with vicious hatred towards each other. This is the newspaper cutting. And this is how the Democratic and Islamic Republic were made. Democratic India and Islamic Republic were made on the corpses of people, its own people. This migration was so painful and unending that people could not settle even after so many years have passed. So people still have those feelings of, those nostalgic feelings, and those painful, horrible memories in the back of their minds, which haunt them every day. Starvation, malnutrition, lack of sanity killed people who were, saved by those riots, who were saved in those riots. Another paper's cutting. These killings went on even after partition. So after partition happened, then also people kept on killing people. Hard times in history are usually hell for its women. And holy Hindu scripture, Manusmriti, says where women are honored, divinity blossoms there. And wherever women are dishonored, all actions, no matter how noble it may be, remains unfruitful. But for this time it was completely erased from the mind of people. They became worse than animals, and when it came to treat women, they maimed the dying and raped, shrieked as religious fanatics rioted in the streets, leaving behind them a trail of corpses in one of the greatest massacres of all time, says Leith Anderson. To understand and portray the real meaning of partition for women and destruction of country and its people, these are the novels I have looked into. Ice Candy Man, written by Bapsi Sidhwa. And this is the movie which was based on this novel, Ice Candy Man, Earth. This is Pinjar by Amrita Pritam, and this is movie based on that. And the last novel, A Bend in the Ganges by Manohar Malgaonkar. So this first story talks about a love triangle at the backdrop of partition, and it tells how love becomes so cruel that it doesn't hesitate to destroy the person it loves. Ice Candy Man, this one, was a charming boy who falls in love with a Hindu maid, this woman. Initially she was attracted towards him too, but when she noticed a kind of religious fanaticism in his behavior and his attitude, she preferred to go with a more liberal man, Dil Nawaz, this other boy, who was ready to modify himself for her, for love's sake. But this Ice Candy Man, when he got to know about it, he killed this man and got the maid captured by angry Muslim mobs. Bapsi Sidhwa, she is a Parsi woman, so she wrote this novel from an objective perspective. She neither took side of Hindus nor Muslims. She wrote it from a very objective point of view. It is not like men were not tortured or killed in these riots, but these were women who lived a living death at the hands of religious fanatics. Because for them, they were not just women, but the site of their fanatic battle. They were the food for their unquenching ego. Urvashi Botalia, an Indian feminist and author, told the Indian Express that some of these women were sold into prostitution, some were sold from hand to hand, one after another. She said, and some were taken as wives and married by conversion, forced conversion sometimes, and some were just disappeared. The maid in the novel, she was gang raped and ended up in a brothel. People started killing their daughters and wives and mothers to save them from violation. So people were killing their own daughters and their own wives, their own mothers, just to save them, so that they cannot be captured by other religious person. Women started killing themselves too. They killed themselves, they committed suicide, and they started burning each other too for the sake of honor. And those who were captured were first raped and then tortured and then killed very, very brutally. And their private body parts were mutilated, breasts chopped off, and their skin tattooed by the name as symbol of their conquest, of these people's conquest. Those who could manage to be alive after all this had to live with the scars of this amazing gift for the rest of their life. The second story, Pinjar. It is written by Amrita Pritam. She is a Punjabi girl and brings into light a life of a Sikh girl. This girl on the top, Puro, who was engaged, dreaming, and she was already engaged, and she was dreaming about her upcoming married life. And at that time, this partition happened, and it killed all her dreams. She was kidnapped by Rashid Khan, this man with turban, and he did that to settle his personal score with her father. So to take revenge from the father, he kidnapped the daughter. Pinjar, the word Pinjar, it means skeleton. So she becomes a living skeleton in his house. And that's what she becomes after this incident. Rashid, this story was actually, kind of romantic. So, I mean, they tried to give it a romantic and positive touch. So Rashid actually loved her, and he didn't want to do those things, those bad things to her. But it was just a glimpse. The first thing when she was kidnapped, these kinds of things happened a lot. These kidnappings and forced conversions and all these things. And later on, this boy, he redeems himself by saving other girl who was connected to this girl to be the victim of the same kind of crime. These women became homeless and defenseless and completely alone in ruthless words, because when they were kidnapped and when they tried to return to their house, people didn't accept them, families didn't accept them. Many were kidnapped and converted forcefully, and those who could escape were not accepted by the family for the sake of their so-called honor of the family, and they declared they just left them. Puro faced the same fate, and she was kidnapped and then converted, and then never accepted by her parents for what happened to her. So she was the victim, but she was the one who was the culprit later on. Instead of gaining sympathies of her loved ones, she saw them turning their faces and walking away from her life. Though later on women were sent to India, from India to Pakistan and vice versa to reunite their families, and later on they were accepted. But exactly in the midst of that partition, if a woman is coming back, there was no home for that woman. This third story, Bend in the Ganges, it is a critique of the superficial adherence of the high values like truth and non-violence. So we got independence by following these values, but later on in the wake of partition, we realized that we were actually just following them superficially. It was not a real acceptance of these policies and ideologies, and that's why so much violence happened and so many people were killed. And people just used these ideologies just for their convenience. So when the time was convenient, they used these ideologies. When the time was difficult, they just came to their own color. And it also shows how communal rights destroyed the country in just few days. Palash Ghosh writes, this is a glimpse of violence against women. Palash Ghosh writes, women of all ages, ethnic groups and social classes were victimized, tortured and raped. Some even were stripped naked and paraded down streets to intensify their trauma and humiliation. In many even more tragic cases, fathers fearing their daughters would be soon raped or converted into another faith, pressured and coerced the girls to commit suicide, lest such an event taint their family's honor and standing in the community, or they killed their own female relatives themselves. This is a picture of woman being kidnapped, crying, wailing. This was the time when they were trying to reunite these girls who were kidnapped. So they are giving their information so their loved ones can find them. Complete disaster. To conclude, it was a combination of colonial conspiracy, latent communal anger, and a huge fear of being left behind that ripped the soul of the country apart. There should always be room for other ideologies, other point of views and understandings. Whenever these things are missing in a society, chaos like this finds its way. Nonviolence was defeated by religious fanatics and their greed for power and land, which destroyed us. People like Bhagat Singh Ji, Subhash Chandra Bose, and many others who could not tolerate heavy blows of insult on their motherland took up the weapons to eradicate Britain. The dream of both sides was one, India's independence. But both of them didn't try to understand each other. People from outside took full advantage of these ideological gaps, and greed of power in people made them ignore the very essence of human heart, which is compassion. Lack of unity makes people powerless, and that's what happened to our country. And different reasons divided people, endless communal riots and ruthless mass killings broke people's consciousness. Jallianwala Bagh massacre and several other atrocities inflicted upon people by British government forced people to doubt policies like non-violence, which was a noble policy. And by the time we were to get independence, everything was already out of control. Friends were no longer friends and enemies were no longer enemies. So the circle of animosity was reversed now. Now Hindus, Muslims and Sikhs, who were brothers, now became enemies. And British government was now a mediator, a friend of all of them, and who actually divided. What happened to its women is what happened to the country. Both were raped. The country and the women were raped inhumanly, murdered brutally, and forcibly taken away, sold like cattle in the name of religion, forced to kill themselves, killed in the name of honor. Whatever remained was miserable and a living death, devoid of harmony and balance. But we have not learned anything yet from these painful experiences, painful examples, and the anguish of gone generation forgotten by this generation. Is forgotten by this generation. To avoid witnessing this inhumanity again, there is a strong need to be together, to accept and respect differences, and to leave the policy of exclusion and embrace inclusive ideologies, which should be above all caste, creeds and religion and political views. Only this can save us all. Thank you.
Ekta, thank you very much for a wonderful presentation. We have a few minutes for a few questions, so if you wish to use the microphone, do not hesitate to go to that microphone or raise your hand and I will bring the microphone to you.
Do you know how many Muslims there are in India currently today and how they're treated? And second, do you think Pakistan and India will ever become one again and trust each other?
I think Muslim population in India, I don't know the exact number, but we are almost, Muslim population is almost 50% of Hindu population. So, of total Hindu population. So, and about, what was your other thing?
Do you think India and Pakistan will ever trust each other?
I just feel that, this issue of trust, it's between, these political forces, they actually don't want people to be united. And they want all of us to fight with each other all the time, and that's how they get benefited. So I just feel like, these are just these political views and political forces that are keeping us apart. Otherwise, I have friends in Pakistan. I have Pakistani friends. I have a lot of Muslim friends. I think my number of Muslim friends are more than number of Hindu friends. So it's like we are friends, but I think politics doesn't want it.
And if I may add to that great question, I think Pakistan was created based on Muslims, right, of India, majority in the east, Bengal, and majority also in the west, which is today's Pakistan. Then when they got together, they realized they're Muslims, but they do not speak the same language, they don't come the same culture. They're Punjabis, Sindhis, Baluch, Pashtun, and so on and so forth. So the way Pakistan has been kept is more or less by military dictatorship, right? Which is using iron fists to keep the so-called Muslims together, right? And the only reason that this military can justify itself is the existence of an enemy called India. So without India, there is no justification for a Pakistani military and military intelligence to continue its life. That's just part of this puzzle that needs to be described. I was, as Ekta was talking, I was reminded the year after Muhammad Ali Jinnah created Pakistan, a member of the Pakistani parliament gets up and starts speaking in Pushtun, his own language. And somebody protests, what kind of language is this? You have to speak in Urdu. You know, this is now the language of the country of Pakistan. And the guy stops the Pushtun man and he says, for the last 4,000 years I've been a Pushtun. For the last 1,300 years I've been a Muslim. For the last year I've been a Pakistani. Now to which one do I have my loyalty to? And that says a lot about Pakistan and the need for India to exist as an enemy. I know you have a question here.
I have heard it said that the revolt in India against Britain was the beginning of throwing off colonialism, that they set the pattern for other countries. Do you have any feelings why India was able to be the first one to start this?
Yeah. I think what I have read about it, I feel like we were privileged that we had our scriptures intact, and we actually drew our inspiration from those texts like Bhagavad Gita and the teachings of Bhagavad Gita, and most of the fight, which was the struggle, which we were leading, it was based on the policies of non-violence, truth, satyagraha, and all these things, which were the part of Bhagavad Gita. So that's the thing I think our leaders drew inspiration from, and that was the reason I think we started it. And in 1832, one of our greatest leader, Dayanand Saraswati, he said that return to Vedas. So he was actually, because British government was trying to whitewash Indian minds, that because they were saying that they have come to civilize us, and people actually forgot that they are the oldest civilizations, one of the oldest civilizations in the world. So these leaders actually asked them to go back to your scriptures and read it again. And all they are telling you now, you have already known it, but you have forgotten. So you need to remind yourself what it is. So I think that's the reason we could start it and we could grip on it. And it was a blow on their imperialistic conquest, because they all their imperialism was dependent on their idea of civilizing the world, the white man's burden. So, and you were not civilizing India. So that was the thing, and that was the blow on their imperialism, I think.
Thank you very much, Ekta. It's a great presentation. Please. So we are now moving to the student panel, so please come in.